Welcome! In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the skeleton bird cut file in Cricut Design Space. As you can see, I have a blank canvas ready to go. I'm going to start by going over to the Upload tab, and I'm going to choose Upload Image. I am going to use my file, which I have saved on my desktop. If you have it saved somewhere else, you're going to click that Browse button and bring it into the program. Once I have this, it should look very similar to mine with the black shapes and the red lines. We do want this to be a cut image, and we're going to choose Upload. Then, to get it on our canvas, we're going to select it from our library. We're going to choose Add to Canvas. Now this is already appropriately sized for cutting on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or cardstock, but right now Cricut Design Space makes everything default to a cut. And if you see, we have a lot of lines in here that are specifically for scoring. We don't want those to be cut through. Each of these are going to be bend marks that are going to be scored into the paper to make it easier for us to make those folds. So we need to change that. If you see this first group here, this is all of our score marks. So we need to change this from a basic cut to a score instead. Now these are all going to be dotted lines, but you can't really see. So if I go to the other group and I change this to a white color of paper, now you can see that all of these lines have turned into dotted lines from our first layer. And these are going to be using our scoring tool rather than our cutting tool. So there's one more step that we have to go through before this is ready, namely that we have to attach these. I'm going to show you what this looks like right now if we try to make it. You'll see that Cricut Design Space has separated out the layers into two different mats, and it's moved all of our pieces into what it thinks is the most efficient use of space. We don't want this, so we're going to hit cancel. We're going to select our group, and we're going to attach. What this does is it groups everything together to where it will not be separated and it will not be moved. So now if we go to make it, you will see that everything is in one space exactly as we have it set up. And this is exactly what we want. I am going to go ahead and click continue, and I'm going to plug in my maker. Okay, once we have our Cricut machine turned on and plugged in, it's going to ask us some setup questions. You need to choose the type of paper that you're going to be cutting out of. So in my case, I am using a lightweight cardstock. So I am going to actually take this from heavy cardstock and change it to medium. And the easiest way I've found to find the paper that I'm using is to search. If you use frequently, you should probably flag it. So I'm looking for medium cardstock, and I'm going to flag it for future use. Alright, so I've set this to medium cardstock. That's going to change how hard it's pushing through and how fast it moves. Now, I don't actually have a scoring wheel, so I'm going to change the tools. I have a scoring stylus, and my cut tool is going to be the default fine point blade. Alright, once I'm happy with these, I'm going to click the Load Mat button on my Cricut, and then I'm going to hit the Go button. A few quick notes about my setup and some tips for the best cut possible. With my setup, you'll notice that I have a scoring stylus in clamp A and the cutting tool in clamp B. I highly recommend getting a scoring stylus because the convenience of not having to switch out a scoring wheel to the cutting wheel means that I don't have to do anything with this while it's going. The next thing I recommend is having as sharp a knife as possible. This is a really intricate cut, and if you use a duller blade, you are risking tearing the paper or not cutting all the way through on the first try. I highly recommend getting replacement blades that are just the blade rather than replacing the whole Cricut assembly, because it is significantly cheaper. I've included the links to the kind of blades that I use in the description. They are much easier to install than you might think, and it saves you a lot of money in the long run. Another tip is the support that you see sticking off the front of my machine has been really helpful because my machine is on a shelf. There is nothing to support my mat off the front. So before I had this support, my mat would curl and it would actually cause the paper to lift off of the mat. So if you're in a similar situation to me where your Cricut has to sit off of something, I highly recommend checking out Etsy or the Amazon link in the description for this particular tool. Finally, the last tip I have is when you are weeding your project, it is very helpful to have a set of tweezers on hand for holding down small parts of the project as you're lifting away the paper. And make sure you have an X-Acto knife handy for cutting through any small parts that the machine missed. Once your page is completely cut out on the Cricut, you're going to have a result that looks like this. And once you're done weeding, you will finally end up with a result like this. Please check out the next video in the series where we go over how to actually assemble this into your very own bird skeleton.